Record. Welcome to our Amud Yomi Shiur. We are studying Maseches Kiddushin, Daf Samech Daled Amud Beis in the bottom of the page. We are towards the end of a very interesting sugya. The previous Mishnah that we saw before, that Mishnah spoke about an interesting case. A father was Mekadesh his daughter to someone. He doesn't know which daughter was the one that was Miskadesh. Okay? Samech Daled Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom of the page. Yes, good. So now, what's the story? The father remembers that when he was Mekadesh the daughter to the man, he described her as the Gdola, the big one, the old one. What does the old one mean? Yeah? No, not the fat one. The big, not as big fat, but as old, mature, aged. So now the question is now, when this person has two groups of girls, one from one wife, and then the wife died, and there is another group of girls from another wife, okay? And the question is, when he said my Gdola, which one did he mean? Did he mean, according to Rabbi Meir, by the way, we're talking here, did he mean to say any of the girls that belong to the older group, the older league? Let's say there are 3 girls that are older, okay? Do any of them can be considered to be a big one? Or maybe we're talking about the younger ones that are relatively old. Why? Because they're older than the youngest one. Imagine yourself, I'm not going to do it again on the whiteboard. Imagine yourself 3 girls that are of the older group and 3 girls of the younger group. Okay? So the 3 older ones can all be called old because they're from the older group. The younger ones, the older of the younger group, are also older relatively. So they all need the get. According to Rabbi Meir, they all require get b'di'eved, if that happened, because maybe each one is, under the radar, each one is a maybe mekudeshes. Maybe she's defined as a gedola. Baruch Hashem. That's Rabbi Meir. Comes Abaye. Now, by the way, Rabbi Yossi argued. Rabbi Yossi said, no, we're not focusing now on Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi said, no, the only older, when you say older, you mean the oldest. Yeah, you don't get into questions, you don't bring yourself into doubts. When you said old, you meant old. Now comes the Omar Abaye. Only the oldest of the oldest group, yes. The the oldest one. Omar Abaye. Says Abaye. Machloikes b'shtei kitei bonos. The only machloikes in which Rabbi Meir tells you that all the girls are in doubt, except for the youngest. That's only true when you have 2 groups of girls. Aval bekas achas. Let's say the man only has 1 group of girls. To make it nicer, we'll say there are 3 girls, old, middle, and young. The man has 3 daughters, and he was mekadesh the old one. Divrahakol gdoilo mamish. When he said gdoilo, he meant the oldest. Ktana mamish. When he spoke about the young one, he meant the youngest. The middle girl, you don't call the middle girl of one group the old one, which means that between one group, the internal politics of one group, there, a person doesn't call the middle girl the old one. He calls her the middle one, or calls her by her name. He tells the man, Bi Mekadesh, my Sprinz Beile. That's all. That's the name. Bishma Karila. And he would, that relativity business is only between groups, but not within one group. Now, before we continue, and here it's good we're doing Chazar, because I think now I'll be able to explain it more clearly. There's a difference between what the Mishnah wrote and what we understood from the Mishnah. Rashi already prepared us for this in the Mishnah. The Mishnah sounds like, if you read the Mishnah well, we're not going back there now, it sounds like there are only 2 girls per group. The Gdola Shebegdolos, Ktana Shebegdolos, and in the Ktanos, Gdola and Ktana, right? That's how it sounds like. The Gemara, however, assumed that, well, what about if the person has Kenai Nahora, Tevya times 2? He has 14 girls, he has 10 girls, he has a lot of girls. Let's say he has 3-4 girls in each group. What would be the halacha? The Gemara assumed the same. In other words, just like Rabbi Meir believes that big may mean relatively big, then what? All the girls, down to the last one, except for the last one, the youngest one, they're all under the suffix, because they're all older than someone. right? Even the one who's 14 is older than a 12, right? Okay, that is what we thought. And now the Gemara is going to attack Abaye based on that thought. Omar leRavada Ramatna leAbaye. Says Ravada Ramatna to Abaye, Elamata, according to you, according to your logic, Imtsois shebekas shnia tishteri. According to you, the middle girl, if you have, let's say, three girls in the lower, younger group, the middle one of that group, tishteri, should be allowed, right? You, Abaye, you say that within one group, we don't believe in relativity. No Albert Einstein over there, yeah? When you have the middle girl of the youngest group, she should be allowed, right? Who's old? Either somebody from the older group, they all look down at the younger group, we are from the top league, we're the old league, or the oldest one of the younger league. But clearly, the middle of the younger league, she's not in the question, even according to Rabbi Meir. And the way we assumed up until now is not that. We assume, no, right? We assume that everybody, according to Rabbi Meir, down to the last one, is included. How do you explain that, Abaye? Answers Abaye. I'm sorry, says Abaye, you assumed wrong. You know what our Mishnah talks about? Our Mishnah talks about a younger group, and that actually sounds more like the Pashup Pshat of the Mishnah. Our Mishnah talks about a younger group that contains only two girls. That's why the Mishnah said Ktana. Let me explain something which I did not explain on Thursday. I'm happy we're doing the Chazorah. The Mishnah says that the Ktana Shebaktanois is the only one out of the question, right? So we're medayek. So if you have a middle one, if you have a middle one in the younger group, then she is included, meaning you give her a get. Oh, that's not good with you, Abaye. Says Abaye, no. Our Mishnah and Chinami only talks about a case of there are only two girls in the younger group, big and small, young and old. That's why the youngest one is the only one. But en hachinami, if in the younger group there would be 3, 4, 5 girls in the younger group, all of them except for the oldest one will be out of the question, because I am right that anybody who's a middle girl in the younger group is not included. I stand by what I say. And actually what I'm telling you makes more sense than what you're saying. Why? The im isa de ika, if you really think that we have a middle girl in the younger group, and you're telling me that she's included, which is a chiddush, a litnei, litnei. The Mishnah should have mentioned it. You agree with me, says Abaye, that what I'm saying can be potentially right. That the middle girl of the younger group, you have 1, 2, 3, the middle one of the younger group is really what? You want to tell me? That excluded, included? You believe me? You don't believe me? Whatever it may be. The Mishnah should have written it. The Mishnah should have told us that really there is a younger group of 3 girls, right? And you know what? All of them, including the middle one, needs a get. Why didn't the Mishnah say that? The Mishnah didn't say it. You know why? Because I'm right. Because Pugd is only the youngest one. Yeah, the youngest one is the one who is in the get. The middle one would have been just the same as the youngest one. Otherwise, the Mishnah should have said it. According to you, the middle, now we're attacking Abaye. We're attacking Abaye now. What does Abaye say? Abaye is like kind of relying on the fact, basing himself on the fact that could be that there are 3, 4, 5 girls in each group, but we don't mention them, right? Why don't we mention them? Because they're all like the Ktanos. They're all the young ones of the younger group, they're all Ktanos, they don't need a get. Now, according to you, Abaye, what about the middle girl of the older group, of this first older group? The Vada is Feika, the Asirale, right? We all agree, Abaye, you and I agree on one thing, that the oldest group are all in trouble. They all need get, right? Including the middle one or the middle ones. In the older group, you have, let's say, 3 girls. The middle one, of course, needs a get. Wait a second, Miktanila? Why isn't the Mishnah writing it? If you, Abaye, you're such a fan of the idea that the Mishnah should have written the middle ones as well, and you're basing your halacha on that, why didn't we mention the middle one of the oldest group to let us know that really she's included? Right? We should have known she's included, right? Just like you're saying, right? Miktanilo. Yeah. Okay, so answers the Gemara. Yeah, sorry. Answers the Gemara. Answers the Gemara. No. Hachi Ashta, is that the same? It's not the same. Not the same at all. Abaye is now answering the attacker, the challenger. Hachi Ashta, is that the same? First wide line. Hosom tana ktana dida leisura. Over there in the older group, we mentioned the ktana shebegdoilois. We clearly mentioned that the youngest of the oldest group is included. You don't have to be a goin, you don't have to be the stipler to understand. Kol sheken, the middle of the oldest group is called big. Let's say the biggest group has 28, 26, and 24 years old. If the 24 years old is called the old, clearly the 26, right? You don't have to be going to know that. So clearly she's out of the game, not because she's out of the game. She's not mentioned in the Mishnah because it's obvious that she's included, because she's part of the big group. The youngest of the big group, Koshik in the middle. But when you're talking about the middle girl of the younger group, which is what we're arguing about, says Abaye to the challenger, if so, in Isa de Ika nitne. But according to you, if you want to tell me that the middle girl of the younger group is included and she needs to get a get because maybe she's called big, that's a chiddush. You may disagree with me, says Abaye, but you have to agree that at least the Mishnah should have refuted what I say. That's what Abaye is saying all along. At least accept me as a Havamina, according to you, and the Mishnah should have mentioned clearly that the case of the middle girl of the youngest group, she's really considered as big, not like Abaye says as small. If the Mishnah failed to mention it, mashma what? Then I'm right. By default, mashma that really the middle girl of the youngest group is not included. And Ktana doesn't mean the youngest, means the youngest plural, the youngest girls of the younger group, they're all really excluded. And that's what I'm saying, Abaye, and I'm right, and I'm based on the Mishnah. Abaye is good. Omar le Ravuna Bred Rav Yeshua le Rove. Now Ravuna Bred Rav Yeshua is asking Rove, Abaye's friend, he's now kind of asking a question on Abaye, he's addressing Rova. He's asking the following question, Pesach, if you remember, we mentioned in the previous Amud that there is a machlokes about Pesach, not the halachos of Pesach. Machlokes about a neder. Remember the machlokes? A person made a neder, and he clearly said the neder will apply until before Pesach. Yeah, I'm already doing something very wrong now. I'm translating lifnei as before, and that itself is machlokes. If lifnei means before or not, right? So beforehand, what did we understand? We had machlokes Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Meir is the one who believes that people may get ambiguous, and therefore before Pesach meant what? The neder applies all the way till the end of Pesach, because maybe before Pesach does mean before the beginning of Pesach. Maybe Pesach means before the end of Pesach. Before there's 5 seconds of Pesach left. Before any bit of Pesach is still in the world. And because of that, says Rabbi Meir, what? Imela, you still should be in the neder until the end of Pesach. And Rabbi Yossi says no. Rabbi Yossi, just like in our Mishnah, Rabbi Yossi says no. When people speak, they speak clearly and they mean what they say. And therefore, when the person spoke about Pesach before Pesach, he spoke like a normal human being, and he meant before Pesach. Once it's Nacht, before Leila Seder, you sing, oh, Hallel in Shul, Leil Pesach. Already then, or even before, the neder doesn't apply. Problem with Abaye now, a Pesach, the Chikas Achas Dami, Upligi. Pesach is like one group of girls. Pesach is one group of days, right? There are no two groups. There's one group of days from 1 till 7, and in Chutzar it's 8. It's one group of days, and Yom Supak is it the oldest day, the first day, or the last one, similar to here. And they still argue, so it's wrong, Lichor, what Abaye is saying. Abaye says that when we have one group of girls, they don't argue, and everybody agrees it's only the oldest one. You see, Pesach, they do argue, even if it's only one group of days. Answers the Gemara, Omerle explains over to defend Abaye. Awesome, over there, Belishna de Alma Kamiflagi. They're not arguing about the philosophy of if a person gets clear or unclear when he talks about one group. They actually argue on a very clear grammatical dictionary definition of the word pnei. Simple, no lumdus. Actually nothing to do with our sugya. We're now disengaging the sugyas of Pesach and the girls. Marsovar ad pnei haPesach means ad kam pischa. One person who's Rabbi Meir, he believes that the word pnei is like I told you in English, lifnei, or pnei means before. Right? Did you know that? That before is lifnei in Hebrew. Baruch Hashem, your ulpan word for the day. Lifnei Yom Rishon, before Sunday. Before Pesach, before Pesach. Umar sovar ad the mifni pischa. Rabbi Yossi gets a little bit more interesting, and he says ad lifnei Pesach means pnei doesn't mean lifnei before. Pnei means to clear out. Lefanot. What does it mean lefanot et akelim? Lefanot et hayeshuvim mi Aza. What does it mean? To evacuate, to clear out, right? It means the other person, Rabbi Yossi, believes that pnei means until Pesach is cleared out, until Pesach is, so to speak, evacuated, until Pesach is out of sight. Until then, Maneder applies, meaning till the end of Pesach. That's all. But it has nothing to do, essentially, with our sugya. Sabai is good, and the Gemara is good, and everybody is good. Omen Rabbi Yossi. Next, the Mishnah. Now comes the interesting Mishnah. And again, I'll give you the few introduction before the Mishnah. The Mishnah has 4 interesting cases. A couple is fighting. What are they fighting about? Are we married or not? Who says we're a couple? One side says we are married, and one says, no, you never married me. I'm not your husband, or I'm not your wife. Interesting kind of argument, right? I wonder if it happens in the Western world, actually. Yeah, weiter. Yeah, probably. Yes, of course. We just disengaged it from Pesach. Of course it's a machlokas. Yes. There is a machlokas of Men Rabbi Yossi regarding, yeah. A Man Rabbi Yossi argue regarding the loshon of the person. When a father says the gdola is yours, Rabbi Meir says the father himself wasn't sure what he was saying, and he used the loshon which was ambiguous, and the suffix is intrinsic. That's what's Kiddushin Shen Misaulabiyah, if you remember. The father himself was confusing himself and the choson. The big. What does it mean big? Maybe the 16, maybe 18 years old. Yeah. Rabbi Yossi says no. When you speak halachically, we assume that you're trying to be clear, and we said the big, you only include in your statement what is clearly included there, and that's the biggest girl. That remains. The Pesach is a different machloket. Now, before we continue to the next Mishnah, especially those of us who didn't see us on Thursday because there was no Zoom, so we are going to learn now pretty well about the concept of Shavya Anafshay Chaticha De'Isura. If you decided you paskened for yourself that a piece of meat is treif, and this meat is really bedatz edach haredis, Rav Lando, Machpud, and all the Echsherim in the world, top shchita, and you said, I know, I decided, it's a shaila how to define it, I'm telling you this piece of meat is treif. Well, if I'm saying it, you are not affected by that. You can call me crazy, or don't call me crazy, please. But you can eat the meat. You know it's kosher. You found out there's a mashgiach, big Yerushalayim. I'm saying it straight. Who am I? Right? I'm not here to answer on you. Mashenkin, I am not allowed to eat it. I'm halachically forbidden from eating that piece of meat. Completely. As if it's chazer treif, as if it's cheeseburger from McDonald's, or meat from Safeway. Yeah, it's that bad. Okay? That Shavya Anafshay Chaticha De'Isura, I'll explain different reasons. The Rosh Hashiva, Shlita, Vikuslevsky said the person is his own BSD. The Torah said you can, as long as other people are not directly affected, they are indirectly affected. But as long as they're not directly affected, I'm my own BSD. I pass it for myself. Nobody else is hurt by that, and that's it. Okay, that's one way. There are different. The Ktsois says it's because it's like a neder in other ways. Weiter. Says the Mishnah. Elisha Kiddushin. A man comes to a woman and says, I was Mekadishu. He's not Mekadisher now, friends. Please don't make that mistake. He's saying, a year ago, I gave you a ring, before the war, the corona, maybe amnesia you have. But I remember clearly, I was Mekadish you. We do not live together. We have to stress that they're not living together. They're not. Hence, there's a bilbul over here. Yeah, there's confusion. But he's telling her, I know for sure that I was Mekadish you. I put the ring on your finger and you're my wife, right? That's what he's telling her. She says, you need a shrink, Rabbi. Lo Kiddushin, you were never Mekadesh me. You never put no ring, no finger. I mean, I have a finger, Baruch Hashem, but you never put the ring on it. Lo Kiddushin, you never Mekadesh me. I'm not your wife. Get out of my sight. Yeah, Lo Kiddushin, you're not? No, I'm not your wife. So now what's the halacha? Now, who also b'koivoseho? That man, let's assume he didn't give her a get, he doesn't have to. He is not allowed to marry now her relatives. He's not allowed to marry her mother. Could be her mother's pretty young, yeah. Her mother, sister, daughter, he's not allowed to marry. Why not? Because in his vision, which halacha supports vis-a-vis him, his narrative affects him. He's not allowed to marry her. We just had it in this week's parsha and in next week's parsha, actually, right? You're not allowed to marry your wife's sister, your wife's daughter, your wife's mother. And in your book, she is your wife. So you, mister, are not allowed to marry her close relatives. Yeah. B'shein ken vehi. Muteras b'koivov. She says, I don't know, he's talking nonsense. As far as I'm concerned, and not his wife, she doesn't need a get. She doesn't need the get because she says, I'm not married. I don't have to follow his script, his narrative, and therefore I'm allowed to marry whoever I want, and I'm also allowed to marry his relatives. I can marry his father or his brother or his son. Why? They're not my husband's relatives because he's not my husband. That's the basic, and that same formula we're going to have in 4 different ways now, right? But this is the basic formula. He's affected by his speech and she's not, and vice versa. Now let's see the vice versa. The other case, now the opposite now. Here marries Kiddushtani. She says, Mister, you forgot, you're Mekadesh me. You put ring on my finger before the war, before the corona, before the Bereshis. Kiddushtani, I'm your wife. Dehu omer lo kiddushtich. Sorry, no. I was never Mekadesh you. I don't know what you're talking about. Never Mekadesh you in my life. Then what? Who? Muto b'kovosel. He's allowed to marry her relatives all the time. Why? Because she's not my wife. So I can marry her relatives. She has a very nice sister or daughter or mother. I'm going to marry them if I want. Vehi asura b'koivov. Oh, now that needs extra explanation. That woman who claims she's Eshet Ish, right now, she's not allowed to marry anybody under the sun. Because she, in her books, is a Eshet Ish. So she cannot marry anybody. Oh, maybe he'll give her a get and free her of her shekels, which she put on herself, by the way. So now she, after her divorce, will not be allowed to marry his brother, his father, his son, because they, in her books, in her narrative, they are the relatives of her divorcee. And those Isurim do not stop after Gerushin. And some of them not even after death, right? We know that. You're not allowed to marry your divorcees, yes, sister, mother, daughter, whatever. It doesn't make a difference. And therefore, because she divorced the man, which in her books was her husband, she cannot now marry any of his kroivim. Now, third case, now we have a double trouble. Comes in another factor. She is a single mother. She has a tochter. She has a daughter who's under bas mitzvah. Kidashtich. Comes the man. Case number 3. Case number 3. Kidashtich. Says the man to her, I was Mekadesh you. You're confusing. Oh, I look so young. You're not Mekadesh me, you're Mekadesh my daughter. It wasn't me that I'm not your wife, but my daughter, she's your wife. And I know that. I remember that. Now, according to his books, to his narrative, she is his wife. Who? The mother. The mother is his wife. Who also becomes Gdoilo. He's not allowed to marry her relatives because Shavya Anafshay chaticha d'isura. For him, the Gdoilo muteras b'koivov. She, the big woman, the mother, she's allowed to marry whoever she wants, including his relatives, because she says, not Shavya me, I never made chaticha d'isura. In my books, were never married. I'm I'm not your wife, right? And therefore, I'm allowed to marry your relatives. Who? What about the little girl? The little girl. Here's a chiddush. He is allowed to marry the relatives of the little girl because in his narrative, the little girl is not his wife. So he can marry, let's say, the sister of the little girl, or yeah, let's say. But the ktana muteras b'koivav also. The little girl is allowed to marry his relatives. Why? Because who says that the ktana is married? Her mother. The mother is not believed to talk about her daughter. Shavya Anafshay chaticha d'isura is about me, me, and only me, but not about even my children. And we're going to see in the Gemara next chiddush, okay? So if a mother said, my daughter is married, we don't listen to her. Nobody else says it in the world except for her. She's not Neman to say that. So that girl is allowed to marry the man's relatives too. Case number 4 is the mirror image of the third case. Case number 4. Kidashti bitech. I was Mekadesh your daughter, says the man. Diameres the mother, the one accused, so to speak, of being, the mother of the girl, Omeres lo kiddush eloisi. You're Mekadosh me, not my daughter. You got confused. You're Mekadosh me, not my daughter. Then what? Who also becomes Ktana. He's not allowed to marry the relatives of the Ktana because he says that the Ktana is his wife. You said she's your wife? It's like you saying about the piece of chicken that it's treif. He's saying she's your wife, her relatives are forbidden from you. The Ktana muteres b'koivov. The Ktana is muteres b'koivov. The Ktana is okay to marry his relatives because the Ktana, why not? Because nobody says actually the Ktana is Mukudeshes, right? I'm saying the Ktana, I mean he does, but I'm saying nobody besides him doesn't, nobody says that the Ktana is Mukudeshes. So the Ktana is not affected by what he's fantasizing, but what he's saying. Who mutar b'kovis gdoilo, the gdoilo sur b'koivov. What about the mother? He's allowed to marry the mother's relatives, her mother, her sister, let's say, is allowed to marry the kovis gdoilo. But why? Because according to him, the gdoilo, the mother, never married him. The gdoilo sur b'koivov. The mother who claims to be his wife, you're the man's wife? Even after you get a get, you can't marry his relatives. Like before. You, woman, you are Shavya Anafshay. You made him like a treif piece of chicken for you. You're saying that he's your husband? Nice. Well, we go along with you for you regarding yourself. So you, even if after he gives you a get, you will not be able to marry his very nice and handsome brother or son or father. Basically the same idea in 4 different variations, but the Gemara will elaborate on why we need all these different cases. So we saw 2 cases. The first 2 cases, one time the man says, I am your husband, and she says no. The second case, she says, I'm your wife, and he says, no, I'm not your husband, right? 2 opposite cases. Says the Gemara, yes, we need to mention both cases, both opposites, either when he says, you're my wife, or when she says, I'm your wife. Why? Had we only known, had the Mishnah only told me regarding him that he woke up one morning and he said, you're my Eshes Ish from a year ago, I would have said, Mishum de Gava lo ichbas lei umikri omar. A man doesn't lose much by saying that you are my Eshes Ish. Well, he is losing her mother, sister, daughter, there are lots of fish in the sea. He's not really, so maybe he's playing a game. Why should we believe him? For himself, he has Isurim. But it's not really a credible thing. He's not losing anything. Mikri Omar, he just says it by chance. Maybe he wants to play games with her. He wants to, pull her leg. He's annoyed with her. Aval ihi. But in the opposite case, when she says, I am your Eshes Ish, she's losing a lot. She cannot marry anybody under the sun. Ema, I would have thought, Ilav the Kimla b'dibura, if not for her, unless she really Kimla means to know very well, unless she knew very well what she's talking about, unless she would have done real investigation or has clear memory, loy havas omro, she wouldn't have said it. She wouldn't have stam answered herself if not for a good reason. So maybe she's really right. Maybe it's beyond Shavya Anafshay. A person wouldn't do such a crazy thing to ruin his own life unless he's right or she's right. And therefore, Havamina, I would have thought, Velitza il. Maybe he should also be Oster in her relatives. In other words, maybe we should believe her completely also regarding him. Maybe we should go beyond the borders of Shavya Anafshay, and he should also be Oster because she says such a thing, must be very dramatic and very real. Kamashmalan, no. That would be a very interesting Havamina. Skana is no. Although it sounds very credible, since at the end of the day, this woman, with all the respect, can be very nice, coherent, professional, tzadekis. She's not to aid him. She can talk about herself and make decisions regarding herself, but she cannot make decisions regarding other people. And therefore, if she says, I'm your wife, he's not affected by that. Weiter. Kidashtich biomeres. Who's in the story now? The little girly girl, the techtale. Tulamali. Why did we have to mention the third case in which the woman says, my daughter is Mekudeshes to you? And he says, no, your daughter is not Mekudesh to me. You're Mekudesh to me. And she says, no, my daughter is Mekudesh to you. Well, so we say she's not believed regarding her daughter. The daughter is okay both ways, right? He's allowed to marry the daughter's relatives and vice versa. What's a Kiddush? I know already about Shavya Anafshay that he doesn't affect other people. Answers the Gemara, it's trich. Yes, you do need to tell me that Kiddush because one's girl is not just like anybody from the street. Meaning, Salkadata Chamina, I would have thought, Midoraisa, as we mentioned previously, Heimne Rechmono Le'av. Since the Torah, as we saw in the previous sugya, the Torah gave ne'emonus to the father credibility, to the father to declare whether his daughter, as long as she's katana, yeah, he can declare that she's married. Why? It says, yeah, in Parashat Motzi Shemra, Esbiti nosati lo ish hazeh. I gave my daughter to this man. He's believed to say, yeah, that's the man that married my daughter. So midoraisa, the Torah believes the father. The mother is not mentioned there. Midorabanon, Havamina was midorabanon heimnu ala dido. Maybe Rabbanon made a similar idea. They extended it and they allowed the wife, the mother of the girl, also to be believed regarding the marital status of her daughter. And therefore, betitza bata bedibura, maybe the girl should become osur by her speech, by her declaration of the mother, because she's a mother. Maybe the mother Rabbanon, similar to Father Doraisa, is believed to say, my daughter is married or not married, and therefore the daughter should not be able now to marry his relatives. Kamashmala, no. Kamashmala, no such thing. A girl regarding the mother has no ne'emonus to say if the girl is married or not. Rabbana never established such a thing, and therefore we're back to regular Shavya Anafshay. You can say a lot of things about yourself, kosher, treif, married, not married, mizana, not mizana, but you can't say about your daughter anything at all. You can say, but nobody listens to you. And therefore the girl can marry his father, his brother, his whoever. No say to declare whether the girl is married or not. Kidashti es bitcha. Okay, that's the fourth case. It's bitech, sorry. He's talking to a woman. Kidashti es bitech. Comes the man, the fourth and last case of the Mishnah, fourth and last. I was Mekadesh, your daughter. And she says, no, you Mekadesh me. Again, she's believed about herself. She's stuck, the woman. So she says, you married me, right? But the daughter is fancy free. Why do I need to know that? I know everything already. I know that a man is only believed regarding himself. The woman herself. The girl, the mother is not Ne'eman. So why do you need to mention it? Why do you have to mention anything again? Answers the Gemara. I did it. Tana ha, Tana nami ha. Enochinami. We just want to keep the symmetry of the Mishnah. Since in the third, we had first, second, third case, the thing that fits here, the exact missing link over here is the opposite of the third case, right? And that's why we mentioned it to keep the Mishnah nice, symmetrical, and coherent. Itma. Now we're learning more details regarding our Mishnah. So, does the man have to give her a get? Yeah, let's say he says he's married to her. She says she's married to him. And nobody wants, at least one side doesn't want to stay with the other. You can't force neither a man or a woman to stay in their relationship. So, would there be a get here? Would BSD require a get from him to give her? Yes. Rav Itmar, Rav Amar Koitin, v'Shmuel Amar Mevakshin. Rav says, you force the man to give a get. Soon we'll see what it means. The Shmuel Amar Mevakshin, Shmuel seemingly argues and says, you ask him nicely. You ask, you coax, you cajole, but you don't force him, you don't hit him. You just ask him, I'm joking. You ask him, please give a get if you don't mind. Ahaya. On which part of the Mishnah exactly is this whole argument about whether you force or you encourage a man to give a get? So let's stop a second. Ahaya. On which one of the four cases of the Mishnah are you talking about? Ilema Reisha. What was the Reisha? A man says to a woman, I was Mekadesh you. Mitzido, he doesn't need a get. That's before Cherem D'Rabbeinu Gershom, my friends, the good old days, yeah? And what? He can marry 2, 3, 4 wives, and she can be also his wife as far as he's concerned. So he won't marry her sister. They're nicer people, right? So, of course, you can't force him to give a get. Elamai, you want to force a get for her? She's not gaining anything by that. Why? Because if you force a get to her and she claims she's not married, she cannot marry his brother. But if you're now telling her to receive a get, you are really perpetuating and going along with his story. You're making her lose. Usually we give a get to, we want to free the woman and we'll do her a favor. You're not doing her a favor. Beforehand, she can marry his brother with no problems. Now you're giving her a get, so she's going to end up marrying her divorcee's brother. It's only bad news. What are you gaining here? Lav koifin ika v'lo mevakshin ika. If there's no reason to ask him, surely there's no reason to force him, and not even to ask him. Why should a get be given? Nobody's getting anything. Ela a seifa. Oh, what's a seifa? Seifa here means a second case. She says, I'm an Eshet Ish. Okay, that makes sense. In her books, in her narrative, in her world, she's married to that man. Oh, and we listen to her vis-a-vis her. So she's not allowed to marry anybody right now. Forget about brothers. Right now, she's not allowed to marry anybody. Once she divorces, she'll be able to marry most people except for his relatives. Okay. So you tell the guy, be nice. I know you think she's crazy. I know you think she's telling you a false narrative. But really, do her a favor and what? Give her a get. Oh, frag the Gemara, it's still difficult. Bishlo mevakshin l'chaye. To say that you ask him to do her a favor, okay, you ask him to do her a favor, although you don't believe in this nonsense, but please give her a get because keep her happy. Okay, you can ask, be a nice guy. Elakoifin amai. How can you force the man to give her a get? Because he is losing a little bit, but he's yet losing by giving her a get. What's he losing? Omar, he may say, justifiably so, he may say, Lonichali de itza bekriva. I'm not interested, I'm not happy or content to be also with her relatives. In other words, in my book, she's talking nonsense. The woman needs psychiatric help. I wasn't a Kaddisher, she's making up stories, right? Now, as long as I don't give her a get, then life can go on. Yeah? Okay, you're asking me to give a get, I may be a nice guy. Don't force me. Why? Because if you're forcing me, I heard that she has a sister who's a very nice girl. She has a mother who's not that much older than me, who's a nice woman. And therefore, if you're forcing me to give her a get, now you are really encouraging, perpetuating, stealing my fate as what? As her divorcee. And then I will not be able to marry these women. As long as I didn't give her a get, I'm just living in my world where she's not my wife and I can right away marry her sister. But if I give her a get, then you, BSD, are supporting her already in a subjective way. And now you're going along with her and you're telling me to give her a get. Now she'll be officially in the books of BSD my divorcee, and I can't marry her sister or mother or daughter. That's not fair towards the men. Men also have rights. So therefore, how can you force him to give a get? Is she talking nonsense? Ella, therefore, Shmaitza Adadi Itmal. This is a complete game changer. Rav Shmuel never argued whether you ask for a get or you force a get, but one was speaking sort of as a continuation to the other, one on top of the other, as we're going to explain. Omer Shmuel, mevakshin mimeno litan get. Shmuel says, if the man is in such a situation in which he says, I don't know this woman, I may know her, I never married her, I don't know what she wants. And she says, yes, he married me, I'm your Eshet Ish. You can ask him nicely, please be nice and give her a get. You're interested in a sister, there are lots of fish in the sea. Be nice, give a get. Okay, that's fine. Omar Rav. Now Rav is not arguing with that. Rav is saying something else. Rav is saying something on top of that. Says Rav, Inosan get me'atzmai. Says Rav like this. If the man was not forced by Beis Din, if the man told her at some point, okay, we're going along with your nonsense, and I'll give you a get, without Beis Din forcing, she approached him, she SMS'd him, she texted him, she told him, I'm your wife, give me a get. She says, what are you talking about? They argued. At the end, he says, okay, I'll give you a get. If he gave her a get, that shows that without being forced, that shows to one level or the other, to a certain level, he agrees with her narrative, right? At the end of the day, you can say she's driving me crazy. But at the end of the day, he's the one who gave her a get. If he gave her a get, he's agreeing that they were married. If he agrees that they were married, he has to give her a ksuba. Because even in his books, actions speak louder than words. Your actions show that you are willingly giving her a get, so she was your wife. What does wife mean? We mentioned Rashi and Tosfos and other Rishonim are all celebrating over here. They're all reveling here. And they say, aha, there's all discussion, and here we found the source. that a kesuba is given even for a couple who never lived together. Because these people, as I stressed before, there was maybe Kiddushin. Now we are going with the narrative there was Kiddushin. Finished. They never touched each other except for the finger. They never what? They never had relations. They never lived together. And yet she receives the ksuba. Because once a woman is bekudeshes, there's already a ksuba given. And that's stuck a whole different sugya. It is also mentioned in ksubas. There's a discussion there too. But this is the source that she's given a ksuba. And by the way, he didn't write her a ksuba. Because if he wrote her a ksuba, the Rishonim said that would be a proof, maybe. We discuss it potentially. There's no ksuba. But ksuba, a man owes his wife a ksuba even if he didn't write one, as we saw in Bab Metzia. Yes, a man owes his wife ksuba even without it being written. Only the minimum, 200 zuz or 100 zuz, yeah? But he's not mechuyev more, but he's mechuyev the minimum even without living together, even without having it written. You put your ring on her finger, so now, boom, you're mechuyev 200 zuz. Yeah, say Jack Robinson, mechuyev 200 zuz, even without anything happening between them, because that's the chiyuv he has towards her once he married her. Another statement to support what we just said. Omar Bacha Bar Ada Omar Rav, we're quoting Rav here. The Amrila, and according to others, Omar Rav Acha Bar Ada Omar Rav Himnuna Omar Rav. Rav Himnuna is now added to the trail of Mesoira. Koifin umevakshin. Rav said that you force the man to give a get and you ask him to give a get. Frek the Gemara Tarti. Two. Sometimes the Gemara asks that question. Two, meaning you're contradicting yourself. Yeah, double face, double standard. Tell me what. Would we please decide? Do you force him or do you ask him? It's not the same. Force him. I'm not joking, by the way, Yitzchak. The Bezin would force with lashes. Yeah. That's how they would force people to give a get. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, that's what they should do today. Answers the Gemara, Hachikoma. Vakshin nimeno litin get. Really, you ask him nicely, you cajole, you encourage, you please, 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 to give a get. That's statement number one. End of story. Now, if without being forced, he himself in his own initiative decided to give a get, he's really admitting he was married in spite of what he said before. So if you know Salit in Ksuba, you force him to give a Ksuba because even according to the way he's acting, he was married, so he has to give a Ksuba. Omar Rav Yehuda. Now we come another sugya, which soon you'll see, and that we didn't manage last week. Now this is kind of newish material. Yeah. What happens if a man was Mekadesh a woman in front of one aid, and soon it's going to tie into our Mishnah. Omar Yehuda. Omar Yehuda. A Mekadesh beid echad ein choshesh en lekiddush. Okay. A person who's Mekadesh with one aid. So let me explain. We all know the two aidim are the real thing, right? For money, for everything, two aidim, for murder, for any hilchas based in Mrs. based in, it's always two aidim. However, one aid is not nothing. One aid is good for, give me one clear example, to make another person take shavua, right? That's one example. If I have one aid that supports my side, and I say, you, Yitzchak, you owe me $1 million, and I have one kosher aid that says you owe me $1 million, you don't have to give me $1 million right now, but you have to take shavua, b'doraisa. Yeah, right? So one aid has some power, but definitely way, way less than two aidim. So let's say a man was Mekadesh a woman in front of one kosher aid, kosher mahadrin aid, kosher phone, kosher guy, and what? So yet we say, ein choshesh on the kiddushin. Yeah, the kiddushin we're not choshesh to the kiddushin. Okay, meaning the kiddushin is nothing. En chosheshin, Shlomo here means not even mesofik. You don't have to give a get at all. Nothing happened. Okay. Now they ask Rav Yehuda the following question: Shneim moidim mai. What would be if there is kiddushin of one aid and both chosan and kala admit yes, yes? Says the man, I was mekadesh Prince Abela. Chef Prince Abela, he was mekadesh me. And you know who was the aid? Beryl Shmerel was the aid. And Beryl Shmerel says, I was the aid. What a beautiful trinity. What a beautiful threesome. You have what? You have an aid who says, I saw. And they both say, yes, he saw, and we were miskadesh. I was Makadesher. What's the question? Explains Rashi a very, very lomdish question here. Sounds like a chronish question. On one hand, you can say the reason why 1/8 is not believed is because the Torah doesn't believe Eid Echad. One is less credible than two. That is something even Tim McKenzie can understand. That's not even a din. Yeah, two people say the same thing gives much more credibility than one person. So therefore, the 1/8 is not credible enough. But look, both Chosan and Kala say the same. So we view them as Mekudeshes, which means, by the way, if 5 years down the line, Chas v'Shalom, she'll play the field, then we're going to kill her. Just, I mean, with Eidim v'chule v'chule. No, I'm not joking. Yeah, no, it's a big nafkamina. Or maybe no. Or maybe it's Gzeres HaKosov, says Rashi, there's a Gzeres Shova Dovor, Dovor. It says, Lo Yerebecha Erbas Dovor. Matters of Erva, of marriage and intimacy is Dovor. And it says, Al Pishnaim Edim Yokum Dovor. Only two witnesses for Dovor. So maybe, as they say to Nachronim, Shnei Edim is part of the Maisa Kiddushin. It's not about credible or not. It's Gzeres HaKosov. Just like the Gzeres HaKosov, he has to give her money, and she doesn't have to give him. Just like Gzeres HaKosov, that whatever, he has to set Mukdeshesli. That's it. It's part of the ceremony. It's part of parcel. You need to aid him. We believe the guy. He's an amazing guy. He's Gadol Ador, the one who's the aid. And they all believe him. So what? But Lamaisa, the Torah says you need to aid him because that's the way it is. That's the question. You get the question? Is it because of lack of credibility? Or maybe no. It's just the way it is. We just need to aid him. 1 second. So that's what asked Rav Yehuda, and Rav Yehuda did not answer. In Velav, the Rafia Beyodei. Sometimes Rav Yehuda says maybe yes, maybe no. It was Rafia Beyodei, it was loose in his hands, which means he did not have a clear picture. This expression appears many times in Shas. In Velav, Rafia Beyodei means yes, in English you call it, my friends. Yes, no, maybe so. Yeah, in very colloquial English. Yes, Rabbeinu Peretz. I'm listening to every word you say. Omar, so now let's continue. Itmar, this is completely new material. This we haven't seen last week. Itmar, Omar of Nachman Omar Shmuel. We're about to try and answer the question we just had from our Mishnah. What did we say? Amikadesh bed echad and choshish and kiddushav, va'afilu shnei moedim. So first of all, we made the statement now of Nachman quoting Shmuel says clearly, no question, no hesitation. Even if both sides agree, him and her, yes, there was marriage, yes, he put the ring, yes, I put the ring. If there's only one aid, the Kiddushin is not Kiddushin. Yeah, you need two aidim, otherwise it's nothing. On that, we ask a question from our Mishnah. Rav is now asking Rav Nachman, who quoted Shmuel. Look what we said in our Mishnah. At the very beginning of the Mishnah, what did we say? Omer Elisha Kidashti. He says to a woman, I was Mekadesh you, says the guy to the girl. And she says, no, you're not Mekadesh me. Who also he's not allowed to marry her relatives, her sister or mother. And she's allowed to describe him. Oh yeah, she's allowed. She's not obligated by his narrative. Wait a second. Now let's think. Why is he? Tell me, guys. Why, my friends? Why is he not allowed to marry her relatives? Because he said that she is his wife. He said that there was a Maisa Kiddushin, right? Okay. So Shavya Anafshay chadicha d'isura. It's like sitting at the wedding and saying this is straight. Now, wait a second. If a guy would come to me and say, oh, Kiddushin, I was Mekadesher, I would ask him, where were the Eidim? Where are the Eidim in the story? Where did the Eidim dissipate to exactly in this Mishnah? Let's see how the Gemara is asking the question. Idika Eidim, if you have two Eidim, if the guy brings two Eidim that are kosher, the Shomer Shabbos, they don't shave in the Omer, filter the internet, good guys, two Eidim who clearly said there was a wedding, Amay Muteres Bekoivov. How come she's allowed to marry his relatives? Obviously, he's right. He has Eidim on his side, right? Now listen to the punchline. The Id the Leika Eidim, Amay also Bekoivosel. If there were no Eidim whatsoever, even according to his narrative, why is he not allowed to marry her relatives? Let me explain something. We go along so much with the story of Shavya Anafshay chaticha d'isura, we're forgetting something. Let me ask you a question and then I'll explain the Gemara. Let's say a man says, I was Mekadesh the woman. You see a guy coming to Beis Din, looks not very knowledgeable in Yiddishkeit. I was Makadish the woman. How are you Makadish her? I danced in front of her, and that was Kiddushin. Cute. You may think it's Kiddushin, but to dance without saying Eretz Mukadeshesli, without giving anything, is not a good dancer. It's not worth money. It's not Kiddushin. That's what his reform rabbi taught him. It doesn't know what he's talking about. If a man says to a woman, I was Makadishu and there were no Edim present, then he's not really saying it was Makadisher, even according to his narrative. If you're telling me with all the lomdus that Kiddushin without two Edim is nothing, so if a man says, I was Makadisher, and the Beis say, Edim? No, there were no Edim. So if you say I was Makadisher in front of thin air, in front of no Edim, you're not even saying according to your own narrative that you're Makadisher. It's like saying we flew to outer space together. That's not Kiddushin. Ella must be Elav Beid Echod. Punch of the question. Must be the only middle of the road is there was only one aid. And one aid, as opposed to what Shmuel is saying, has some value, because we all know that one aid has some halachic validity. And the man says, I was Makadasher in front of one aid, which conceptually, if my dear wife would not lie to my face and she would have admitted, like me, that there's marriage, then one aid is good marriage. But because she's refusing to admit, she's not married halachically, and I am married. But really, Eid Echad is the only way to get to that middle of the road case where, according to his books, it's good Kiddushin, and we also believe her it's not Kiddushin. But that's the only way. Again, let me repeat. If there are two Eidim, of course, both him and her are married, two Eidim, like every normal chasana. And on the other hand, if he says, yeah, it was Makadash, sure. Yeah, there was a ring. Yeah, there was everything. I was wearing a black suit and there was a band. And what were the Eidim? There were no Eidim. It's not Kiddushin according to you, mister. You're not even saying I was Makadash. It's not going with your narrative of Shavya Anafshay. It's like I would say this piece is not kosher because it wasn't blessed by the rabbi. You know about that, yeah? Still, you're not even saying not kosher. You're talking nonsense. It's not even called Shavya Anafshay. So the only way to say that there's a middle of the road case where there's half Kiddushin, that for him it's called Kiddushin Shavya Anafshay, and for her it's not, is by Eid Echad. She's not mechuyev to believe in Eid Echad. That's true, because it's not to Eidim. But in his book, it is good Kiddushin because there was Eid Echad. Meaning, if there was Eid Echad and normal situation between them, Eid Echad plus him and her saying yes, 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 and one Eid saying yes, it would be good. So forcefully, we are forced now to talk against Shmuel. 1 second. Give me a second. Answers the Gemara. We just have to get the answer. It's getting late. I'll listen to your question soon. Answers the Gemara. No, there's another way. There's a way out. No. You know the Mishnah is talking about? I'll tell you what the Mishnah is talking about. He gone to Omer Law. He told her, I was Makadish you liar. I was Makadish you in front of two super kosher Eidim, the best Eidim, the cream of the crop of Bnei Brak. You know where there are now rabbis of Beis Din? Very good. They went abroad. Now they can't be reached. One went to Guinea, the other one to Equatorial Guinea. They went to Chutzlar, it's far away in the jungle. They're not reachable. But no, very simple. In other words, I claim there was kosher lemehadrin kiddushin with two super kosher Eidim. They can't be reached right now. Yeah, somebody told me his daughter is now on a safari trip in South Africa, so he couldn't speak to her over the phone. No reception there. You know that? Yeah. So Mimela, two Eidim can't be reached even today. Finished. Yeah, Medina Sayam. Mashain can. Shmuel can still be right. We may hold of what Shmuel says. What does Shmuel say? That Eid Echad alone, even though both Chosan and Kala agree, is nothing. What's the story of our Mishnah? No Eid Echad. There were two Eidim, according to the husband's narrative. Why can't the comment be made? Because they're far away. So the woman is laughing and saying, the man is crazy, he's lying. There are no two Eidim, no nothing. And he's saying, no, there were two Eidim, and now they went far away. The Seder. We can stop here. I want to hear a question now. Yeah. Thank you to those of us who follow us on YouTube and on the wonderful new Torah Anytime site. Thank you, Atzlacha Brocha. Remember tomorrow, Eisivei Samech Vov. No, where are we? Samechei, Amud Aleph. Hatzlacha u'bracha. Thank you very much. Have a great day.